for melodic heavy metal. Playing it heavier, louder, raunchier, faster. This is the Signals of Intuition.
You're listening to the Signals of Intuition, your home for melodic hard rock and heavy metal. That right there was Geoff Tate's new band, Operation Mindcrime, named after the Queensryche classic, and that's their first album in a trilogy of albums called The Key. That track was Reinventing the Future. Right now, on the line, we have Mr. Geoff Tate of Operation Mindcrime, so let's get him on the line right now.
Hi, it's Jeff.
Hey, Jeff, this is Brandon from the Signals of Intuition. How's it going?
Pretty good. How's things?
I'm doing great. Yeah, doing very well. I know you're pressed for time, and we've got a lot of questions to get to, so I guess we'll dive right in. You've got a new record out called The Key with your new band, Operation Mindcrime. Take me through sort of the last year of your life. How did you assemble this band and the new album?
Well, I kind of assembled the band from people that I've known over the years who I shared a common musical interest with. Kelly Gray, for example, on guitar, and Randy Gain on keyboards. We started writing music together and playing music together back in around 1979. And both those gentlemen have played on Queensryche Records, and Kelly's co-produced Queensryche Records and actually toured with us. And Randy toured with us as well at different times. So I've known those gentlemen for a long time. Scott Motton is another guitar player who's working with me now, who I've known somewhere around 2000. We started playing together. Simon Wright on drums. I first met him when he was touring with AC/DC, and my band was opening for AC/DC at that time. The new guy in the band, Jim Fernley, is a young bass player, just a monster player, who I've met over the last couple of years. They had a band called the Voodoos that opened up for me over a couple tours. So it's a group, that's based out of, or made up of people that I've known for a while. And the album itself kind of came together rather quickly. I've been wanting to make a trilogy album, one story that kind of took place over several albums. The Key is actually the first album of the trilogy. The second album is finished now, and it comes out in September. And the third album will be out the following September.
Now, from what I understand, this is another concept album like Operation Mindcrime. Can you sort of give us a basic synopsis of what the story's about, what the themes are, that kind of thing?
Well, it's a mystery, so I can't say too much about it. But I can say that it kind of deals with the subject of reality, how we perceive reality, and questions what reality is made of. Is it something that we learn? For example, as children, we learn the definitions of everything from our parents. This is a dog, a cat, a house, a barn, the sky, the earth, and we kind of gravitate towards that way of learning about reality early on because it's the example that we're shown. And so we learn to define everything within our world. So what happens in my story is there's four guys that are friends, and they are technology developers, and they develop this technology that allows the user of the technology to perceive reality in a completely different way than what is normal or what is used to. Because of the implications of that, it opens up all kinds of doors for time travel, space travel, these kind of things. The four guys realize that what they've developed is something that's monumental, that could potentially change the world and how we look at things. And so because of that, a conflict arises within the group. Some of the group want to market this technology and develop it and become incredibly rich. And others in the group have a more altruistic viewpoint, and they want to give it to the world because they think that the benefits of this technology are going to be something that's life-changing. And so that's where the first album ends, is the conflict in full swing, and the album ends at that point.
Now, how about writing the music? Can you talk about some of the collaborations you had on the first album, The Key, and perhaps any coming up on this next record?
Yeah, the album was primarily written by myself and Kelly Gray and Scott Motton. who are in my group, and Randy King contributed some music for it as well. But primarily, that's our basic writing team right there.
And I know on this record you experimented with quite a few things, one of which was sharing lead vocals with another singer. I know, perhaps once in the past you did it with Queensryche, but you sort of being the voice of the band and kind of the leader in a sense. Why the decision to bring on someone else to share vocals?
Because it's a character-driven story. I think the easiest way for people to identify with the character is giving that character a voice. So Scott Motton sings one of the characters' roles on one of the songs on the first album, Key, and Kelly Gray does a voiceover of one of the characters as well as speaking part.
And actually, speaking of Kelly, you kind of alluded to you having a long-standing relationship with him over the years, but tell me a bit more about your friendship with Kelly. Like, how did you guys initially meet, and what role has he played in your music over the years? Kelly
and I first met at the same time I met Randy Gain in a band we formed called Myth back in 1979. We began writing music at that point and writing our own songs and experimenting with music arrangements and instrumentation. And always got along really well, musically, kind of saw eye to eye on a lot of things. But, our band didn't kind of follow through at that time, and Queensryche kind of did. But over the years, Kelly's been involved with Queensryche in a number of different capacities, from songwriting to music production to guitar playing. And Randy's toured with Queensryche at various times and also contributed to music writing as well.
And what's your recording process like these days? Is everything done at Kelly's studio? Do you have a personal studio that you record, vocals at or demos or anything like that? Or how does that all come together for you?
Yeah, we kind of each have our own home studios that we work primarily out of to develop, song ideas. Then we pick a place to work to put things together at. Sometimes that's Kelly's place, sometimes it's my place, depending on what else we've got going on at the time. The place doesn't matter so much, anymore as the people involved matter the most.
Right.
So,
where do you guys, cut guitars at or drums or anything like that?
Various places. Depends on what they're looking for, getting sound-wise at the time. For this album, we recorded the drums at two places, Scott Mercado's studio in West Seattle, and then a place called London Bridge in downtown Seattle.
I know that place has quite a history with Queensryche, for example.
Yeah, Queensryche has done a little bit of work at London Bridge, yeah. And then the rest of the stuff was recorded at my house or at Kelly's house, one of the two.
What are you running for recording? Using like Reaper or Pro Tools or?
Yeah, both Reaper, Pro Tools.
Okay. And then to change gears slightly, the most recent thing I've heard from you that's come out is your track Seduction of Decay on the new Avantasia record. How did you become involved with that record?
I was contacted. The track was sent to me, and I really liked it quite a bit. It was really kind of old school prog sounding, something that I've been pretty familiar with, arrangement-wise. So, yeah, it sounded like something I could wrap my head around. I really enjoyed singing on that. That's actually a really cool song. I can't wait to hear the whole record.
Yeah, it was a really great performance, too, I have to say. Have you been involved with other collaborations with other artists lately, in this kind of capacity? I know a few years ago you did a couple tribute albums like Queen and Frank Sinatra and, so forth.
Yeah, I think I haven't really done anything else as of late. I've been kind of more focused on what I've been doing, my own stuff.
And speaking of collaborations, the first major one that at least I'm aware of was you working on Dio's Stars song. How did you become involved with that? I know like Queensryche was a fairly new band at that point.
Yeah, we were at that point. I think that was 1985. I think we were just working on the Rage for Order album, which came out the following year, 86. Well, Ronnie Dio was one of the first artists we toured with. He was very much a mentor in giving us a leg up when we were starting out. And we toured all through Europe with him in 84 and got to know him really well. And he was a very personable man, was very interested in what the band was doing. And he called me up and invited me to be part of it. And I was very honored to be part of it.
Now, when you went there, was it like the video where there's 50 of your icons sitting around the room, that kind of thing, as you recorded?
Yeah, pretty much like that. was kind of a daunting experience, really, being a young guy and, just new to the business and all. I remember walking into the control room there and, all these incredible musicians were there and people that have been very successful at what they do and people that I admired were there. Yeah, it was, honestly, I was scared to death.
I can imagine going into a situation like that.
Yeah.
I've got a couple questions that other fans, I kind of solicited other fans what they might like to ask you. You talk about taking musical inspiration from a lot of different artists. What artists are you currently listening to nowadays? Who's your muse at the moment?
Well, I wouldn't say I have a muse at the moment. I'm pretty involved with my own stuff at the moment, which is typical for me. Like when I'm working on an album, I don't listen to anything else. I really honestly find it to be a distraction because a lot of writing is mental. You got a song in your head or you got a melody in your head and a rhythm in your head, and anything else coming in becomes kind of distracting to what it is you're trying to work on.
Right.
But I like a lot of music. I think I probably own 10,000 albums.
Wow.
In my collection. Yeah, I've got everything, from classical stuff and R&B and jazz and pop music to metal to you name it, show tunes, all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Now, do you read a lot? What inspires you as a lyricist?
Primarily life experiences are the biggest inspiration for me. Not so much reading, but actually observing. I'm one of those people that I learn a lot by observation. Like I can watch somebody do something and then learn how to do it and pretty much have it down from the visual rather than I'm no good at reading instructions at all.
And, like music's obviously a huge passion of yours, but outside of that, what are some of your hobbies? What else do you like to do outside of music?
Well, I love fine food and dining quite a bit, which is something I have to kind of keep a certain restriction on because I really enjoy it. I love the art of fine food, someone that really knows what they're doing in the kitchen. I love traveling, sightseeing. I just recently played my 60th country on tour, which I feel very fortunate to be able to do. I like experiences. I like traveling and going to places and meeting people and having experiences and, going out on somebody's boat when you're in, Italy, for example, and
right. When it comes to touring, do you do a lot of that kind of thing? Like I know some people kind of live on the bus. Do you tend to sort of go out and experience life when you're on tour in a new city?
Oh yeah, I've always been that way. I don't ever like hanging out in a hotel. It's kind of just a place to sleep. Yeah, I'd much rather be out on the town, going to places, sightseeing, or hanging out with people I know in the city. After all these years of touring, I know a lot of people all over the world, so it's actually incredibly fun to know that I'm going to be in Nice in June, so I'm seeing some friends there, and they're taking us, my wife and I, out on a sightseeing trip to some of their favorite places. So you get to see places from a native standpoint,
right,
which is really, really cool, rather than being stuck looking at a tourist book and trying to figure out where to go or stand in line to see the Guinness factory in Dublin, big deal.
Yeah. Any interesting places you've been recently?
Not recently.
I guess that's kind of a loaded, overwhelming question in a sense. Anything that kind of maybe stands out, or?
Well, I'm in Annapolis, Maryland today, and I'm sitting in an Irish pub, drinking a coffee, looking out at this beautiful town. I'd never been to Annapolis before, so this is kind of a new experience for me. It's beautifully preserved 18th century buildings, a lot of brick and beautiful architecture. So it's just kind of fun for me. And after I get done talking with you, I go walk around and check out the waterfront. It's got quite a bit of history here.
Oh, for sure. That sounds really interesting. Now, jumping back in time, when Queensryche were just starting out, you guys opened for a bunch of different bands. Who were some bands you opened for, and what lessons did you learn from them at that time?
Well, we were very fortunate to spend the majority of our career opening for different people. What that does for you, of course, is it gives you access to all these different audiences that normally might not have ever heard of you. And we opened up for people as diverse as Metallica and Jethro Tull, Yes, Roger Waters from Pink Floyd, it's crazy the amount of people we opened up for over the years. We spent more time opening for bands than we did headlining our own shows.
And I've got I know you've talked a bit about your experiences in Montreal, particularly having to do with the Mindcrime album. What was your experience at Morin Heights like, where you recorded that record? What are some memories working at that studio?
Well, it's a wonderful studio. It was at that time. It was really technologically advanced. When you walked into Morin Heights, they had several different studios, and it looked like photographs and film footage I'd seen of NASA. Huge video screens everywhere, computers galore, mixing consoles, all SSL. It was really, really the hub of Canada's music scene at that time, and a wonderful place to work. You could go skiing. The ski place was like 3 minutes from the studio. You go skiing and then come back for your sessions that would last from early afternoon all the way till morning. And you had a big lodge there that you stayed at, and it was very comfortable and rustic with a big fireplace, and snow everywhere, freezing cold, but very cozy and warm inside. A wonderful place. And just recently, a friend of mine, who's a journalist, sent me video footage of Morin Heights, and now it's abandoned and derelict, and there's nothing there. There's holes in the ceiling and rain coming through, and it's so tragic to see that transformation.
On Friday, March 11th, you're going to be playing in Detroit. The Key, would you be playing that in its entirety, or are you going to be sort of mixing up solo hits, Queensryche, and the new album, or how's the set looking?
Yeah, we touch upon, it's about a 2-hour show, and we play songs from many of the different Queensryche albums, and kind of a suite of songs from The Key. It's a cool show. We have an acoustic section of the show. We do a couple acoustic numbers. I think what's really entertaining mostly about the show is the band is just fantastic. I mean, just the tightest, most accurate, detailed band I've ever been part of. Every night I love playing the show with them and just witnessing the command of the instruments that these guys have. It's stunning. It's absolutely stunning. And we all push each other in not so much in a competitive way, but I guess somewhat competitive, to excel even better and better and better for each show.
Right, the guy to your left is going to perform, so it's up to you to be equal to the task.
Exactly, yeah. And it's become a really good team of people out there that, I don't know, I can't rave about them enough because they're just exceptional.
And do you think you'll do more solo material as well, or solo tours, anything like that? Or do you think more, at least for what you're planning, it's more focused on Mindcrime at this time?
At this time, I'm focusing on the new albums I'm doing, The Key being the first album and the second album, which comes out in September. And so I'm going to be focusing on playing songs from those records and then playing music from my catalog of albums that I've done over the years. I've done a lot of albums. I've got a lot of songs. But, putting together a set list is a daunting task because there's so much material to choose from.
Speaking of that, one album that I've always felt has been neglected in the past, I've seen Queensryche, 7 or 8 times and seen you solo. Do you think any Promised Land will either show up on this tour or in the future? Because I always feel like that album kind of gets lost in the shuffle.
Oh, yeah. Well, interestingly enough, we are playing several songs off that album in the show now.
Oh, fantastic. I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah.
So other than, you've got The Key that came out last year, the new one coming out, another one. Is there anything else that you're looking forward to or projects you might pursue down the future, anything of that nature?
Well, I'm really looking forward to putting out the second album of the trilogy, which comes out in September, and then beginning the tour on that. I think we're touring right now up until May in the States, and then we take a break. We start in June in Europe for the festival season, and then we'll be back in the States, I think, by winter time to begin touring on the second album at that point.
And have you started writing the third album yet?
Yeah, the third album's pretty much finished. We just have to mix it.
Oh, wow. Oh, so you're that far ahead already.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right, Geoff. Well,
been busy.
Sounds like it. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out to do this interview.
My pleasure.
And on a personal note, you've been, a huge influence on me as a singer over the years. So I just want to thank you for all the great music, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on Friday.
All right. Well, thank you. Pleasure talking with you. Bye-bye.
It ain't the far cry that it seemed in just a wink, wink.